Hi, this is Tolec for the Andromeda Council and Transformational Shift Events. Today is Monday, December 3rd, 2018. My guest today is Angie Clark, founder and principal of Essential Elements Wellness. Angie is a psychic intuitive energy healer. She lives in St. Cloud in the Lake Country of Central Florida, close to, east of Kissimmee and south of Orlando. Angie's sessions can include traditional Imara and Kundalini Reiki, Jinsen Jitsu, past life regression, emotional balancing, physical body alignment, chakra clearing, codes, sacred geometry, cranial sacral, DNA unthreading, and attunements for each client visit. She has a vast amount of training and experience in multiple modalities. She's completed the Certified Natural Health Professionals CNHP program, which was merged into what is now called the Trinity School of Natural Health of Warsaw, Indiana. She's earned certifications in iridology, NEAT, emotional release, light touch, reflexology, Bach flower, Jinsen Jitsu, and kinesiology. Her family herbalist certification was achieved through Dr. John R. Christopher's School of Natural Healing. Angie has earned a master's level Reiki practitioner in traditional Reiki school. She's also achieved a master level Kundalini Reiki and Imara Reiki, along with numerous training sessions in related energy work. She integrates the principles of her many certifications and blends them into her own unique style of intuitive healing methods. Angie also provides psychic readings and intuitive guidance, angel card intuitive readings, channels messages from beings of light, mediumship, spiritual guidance, and training for fellow healers and lightworkers along their own journeys. So please welcome Angie Clark. Angie, it sounds like with that list of accreditations, credentials, gifts, and skills, you'd fit in really nicely here in the Sedona area. And thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. You were saying that it's almost as cool back in Florida right now as it is here.
Well, it was, but we're back in the 80s where I live. So
I'm jealous.
Yeah, we had a winter for a couple days, but that never lasts very long.
So people put away all their heavy jackets and wool coats at 60 degrees.
Right. We get to run around in some winter fashions for a few hours, at least till noon, and then it gets warm again.
Yeah. Okay. So here we are in Sedona. I'm curious. What was the very first experience for you when you first recognized that you had some unique gifts, either that you could sense things going on with people, or that you were able to communicate with people in the higher dimensions? What were some of the very first experiences that you had? You said, I'm different.
Well, I really didn't have a lot of those experiences where I realized I was different. As I've had conversations with friends looking back, they all seemed to know that I was different, but I didn't. I think the wake up part for me, when I was probably 21 or 22, I was struck by lightning. So that intensified things a little bit.
So there was an event.
There was an event,
Okay.
but I was not aware of all of the sensitivities that I had with other people. I was a very shy kid and didn't want to talk to people because I was very sensitive to their energy and didn't understand that that's what was happening.
Yeah.
But the awareness for me really wasn't there until probably 15 years ago, when all of this really started to take shape.
Okay. And when you, in that period, 15, 16 years ago, did you actually start your practice back then? Or did you start going to classes first, or kind of help people on an ad hoc basis? All of those?
All of the above.
Okay.
I started studying just in the basic part of Reiki and started using the techniques that I learned. At that time, I did not understand that what I was hearing voice-wise or some of the colors that I was seeing was really an abnormal thing, because those are things that I had had throughout my life. But when I started my practice, I could feel a tiny bit of tingling in one of my hands. and it's kind of grown over the years. So
Do you also feel a temperature increase? Because
yes.
I've done energy work, and I'll feel some people's hands get hot. Mine, they get warm, but they definitely get tingly.
Yes. For me, and my clients are different. Some of them will feel heat coming from my hands. Some of them will feel cold. For me, it's very intense heat. My hands typically, even though I live in the South, are really cold. But when I'm doing energy work, they're on fire.
Wow. Okay.
So there's definitely a temperature change when I move a lot of energy physically, and sometimes you can sense it in the static in the air around you too.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about the kinds of clients that you see, and the breadth of clients that you see and you help. Would you share with me and the listening audience some of the more unique outlier cases that have been striking or different for you?
Okay. I work with people in varying levels of consciousness. Some of them I work with just basic relaxation and techniques. Other people I work with in grieving and healing, and others it's expansion. Had a lot of very interesting physical adjustments with people when you move the energy in the body in the back. Had one client who stopped me dead in the hallway and grabbed me by the shoulders, and it was a man, so that would freak some people out.
Okay.
And he was one that I had to argue with to get on the table in the first place. He came in for an herbal consult, and I said, that's not where it is, it's energetically in your back. So I put him on the table, and when we were done, he gave me the heads up that he had spent many thousands of dollars on medical tests, and this was something that was easily fixed in about 15 minutes, and he couldn't figure it out. So that
and
was...
when he grabbed you by the shoulders, was that the moment when he was freaked out? So
Yeah, a little bit.
And he was like, well, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, we were walking out the door, and he was walking in front of me. He turned around and he grabbed me by the shoulders on both sides, and he said, you don't understand. I have to tell you, you just fixed in 15 minutes what I'd spent all this money on medically. And he didn't understand, still doesn't really understand what I do, but he's still one of my biggest people. I don't know what she does, but you have to go see her.
Right, because whatever it is, it works.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the basic ones that physically there was an extreme change.
Right. But I'm curious. So there's an energetic block. Mid-back or lower back?
With him, it was mid-back.
Mid-back, okay. This life or past life?
It was this life.
This life.
It was very much kidney adrenal stress related for him in particular. Okay. I have pulled lots of past life experiences, other injuries, traumas from other times and realms from people on a physical level. Sometimes they're awake enough for me to tell them, and sometimes they're not.
Right.
But you gave me permission to come in and do what I do. So if Spirit tells me that they're awake enough and able to hear it, I'll give them the heads up. Other times it's just for me to know how to work with them.
Yeah. So you live in the lake country of Central Florida, which is typically known as horse country.
Right.
It's not uniquely known as a spiritually adept area.
Right.
So having said those things, looking at your client base, because actually this is a fascinating topic because I live here in the greater Sedona area where there are a lot of healers. Are there like 2 or 3 predominant groups of people where it's like, oh, I see like 60% of these kinds of folks, 40% of these? So what do you see, or who do you see locally?
Locally, I see a broad mix. There are a lot of people who are completely asleep, and I do work with them physically, herbally, and kind of dealing with the just human world of stress and relaxation and those sorts of things. I do work, I'd say it's probably, my client base is probably 30% that, and the rest of them are more awake, more open, because I do work with people via distance, so they're not always with me.
Okay.
So I do a lot of sessions over the phone, Skype, Facebook Messenger, all kinds of other abilities to be able to communicate, move energy, because as anybody who's adept with energy at all knows, that it doesn't really matter where you are, because energy knows no boundaries.
That's right.
So probably 30% of those are just normal people trying to deal with physical symptoms and get through life.
Sure.
probably the rest of them are somewhere in their spiritual path, their growth, trying to figure out what's next. And I probably, the 10%, the small, very small group of people that I work with are high level healers, people who are very interdimensional, people who work in grids, who can travel
And we all need help.
astrally, and we all need help. We work with each other.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, because here we are doing this work, and we can't always see what's going on in our own world, so to speak, our universe. Yeah. So we've got to reach out for help.
We do. And I think that's the universal cause and effect. We have to have each other to help us out. That way we're none too powerful that we don't need one another, because we are all in part of the same collective.
Yeah, very, very true.
Helps with the ego issue sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and it's, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in my own moment of transition right now, and it can be a little daunting, to not know where to put your foot next.
Right.
And it's not a process you can force.
No.
If you do, not you, but the parenthetic, if you force it, then you're going to make a lot more mistakes instead of listening quietly or paying attention intuitively and just doing the things that feel right, feel better. Yeah.
There's always new steps coming, and we do. I've been really blessed in my tribe of people that I work with on a continuous basis, that we're always a network of people on the phone with each other, and trying to work through whatever issue is there, helping one another out, being a support. Get yourself together, get out there, get your things done, or I'm here for you, fall apart, and I'll help you pick up the pieces. So.
Yeah. I have a few people that have written to me about a variety of more tactical questions regarding Andromeda Council work or the different conferences and events and stuff. But I have a high percentage of people write for consultation. It's not called that, but they're like, hey, Tolec, I'm doing this, and what do you? How should I get from here to here? How do I navigate this? What do you think about this? And I'll just tune in and pay attention and tell them what I think or what I feel. And I usually get some very nice letters back going, oh, thanks so much. You were just sort of able to open the window for me so I could look out and go, oh, all right, here are the possibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Oh, I'm blessed to, I do that with friends, I do that with clients, and try to help people figure it out. And one of the downfalls here is everybody wants a roadmap. We all want to be told exactly what to do and how to get to the next step, and it's not really that simple.
No.
Some of it comes in with free will and choice, so we have to make those choices and step to the next phase. And I do work as a reader, so a lot of times the way that I read, I don't necessarily always look at fate and destiny. Those things we can create and change on our own.
Right.
So I read in potentials and possibilities, and a little less in this is the absolute, and this is where your records are saying you're going, and because we can change it and we can move it and we can rewrite those things too.
Yeah. But at least if somebody's going to take a step forward, I would imagine it's going to be helpful for him or her, for you to give him or her that range potentiality. It's like, here's kind of where these are the realms you want to step into. And at least that narrows the field from 0 to 50 to sort of like 25 to 35 or 40, as a metaphor.
Right.
It gives them some direction.
Yeah, a typical answer from me is, well, this is where it's going, and if you want to change it, you want to do this, or you want to look at it this way, or change your perception, or do this.
Okay.
And if you want it to continue, these are where you're struggling. So that's typically how I tend to give information when I'm working with clients.
Do you have quite a few of these people that come to you on a consultative basis to say, hey, listen, energetically I'm fine. There's no back problems, no arm problems, nothing, but kind of need some direction, some support. Do you have?
Yep. I not only work with just the physical body, I also work with guided meditation and other energy work. That helps to release wherever the blockages are. What I do is I kind of walk people through, I call it guided meditation, but really it's hypnosis. So put you down into another place where we can really take a look, and you can get out of the way on the human side and kind of go between, and then also readjusting the energy that comes in. This particular kind of session with me is typically channeled. So if you ask me in a couple of hours, I might not be able to remember anything that I told you.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you record those for your clients?
Not typically, but I
Okay.
can if
Sure.
I'm asked to. A lot of people, I do let them record, especially when we do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a typical thing that I do.
Okay. Alrighty. And we've talked about this piece earlier as well, but as an example, after you've had a couple of exploratory conversations with a potential client, how do you determine which skills or gifts that you're going to use to help this person? I'm sure you're really good at asking questions and listening, but after you're done, there's got to be some way that you can say, okay, this is the direction we're going to go into. Just like the gentleman with the problem in the middle of his back.
Typically where I start with working with my clients, and we sit down and we have just a general conversation. I want to know where your goals are, where you're feeling stuck, where the issues with you are. And then as I sit and listen, I kind of tune in, and sometimes I get a general impression of what is needed. But a lot of times once we get into the session and I get out of the way, Spirit has another something in mind. So sometimes I really don't know until we get into the session, once I'm able to fully let that information come in and get out of the way.
That's really good. Yeah, it's good that you're able to recognize how much of this process is relevant to you and how you as the person are contributing as compared to spirit, higher level beings that are coming through and saying, we've got some information for you. Hang it right over here. Help this person out.
Yeah, like I said, the meditation is fully guided. The words are never the same. I have a pattern that I have kind of instilled that they work with me so that it's easy for the client to follow it through. So the energy moves through the body in a specific pattern, and I kind of walk them through that. But whatever energy is moved in whatever part of the body we're talking about at that moment, the verbiage is different. And it's always specific to the person. I do have clients who are of one theology or another. So I will notice that my terminologies change. So they usually work with the person where they are, what terms are of value to them, what their soul understands, and where it can make the most impact.
Right. And in that manner, they're likely to be more accepting of whatever is going to be recommended because you're catching them right where they are in terms of their own theological awareness, emotional openness, because all of those are intertwined.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And I do respect everybody's where they are in their path, where they are in their experience, and where they're headed in their future growth too.
You mentioned earlier the topic of some feedback that someone gave you about you bring a real human perspective to this process that you use. Would you share that story with everybody?
I had a friend, actually this was just a couple of weeks ago, we were heading back from an event and she'd helped me out, and we were just talking about spirituality and how we tuned into things, and she told me that I human better than a lot of people that she knows, which kind of struck me as an interesting comment because, I don't know how everybody else works. So it's hard for me to kind of stand in their shoes and not know that anything that I do is in any way different. So what she told me was that I'm able to bring things in and walk in the human world a little bit easier than a lot of people that she knows. How true that is, I don't really know. But for me, the way that I look at spiritual growth is that we are here, we're in a body, and as great as it is to be outside and to astral travel and know all of your guides and your beings of light, we are stuck, and I call it jokingly a skin suit because I make fun of a lot of things. I call it spiritually snarky. That's cute. That's where I'm at, but we are in this skin suit.
That's right. Everybody might have calls it a meat suit, but same idea.
Yeah. So we are in the skin suit and we are here to do something. So for me, it's to be a guide, to be a teacher, to be a mentor, and in all those ways, my own experiences come into play. So as I continue to work and grow, I'm bringing in those types of things also for my clients. But I do think it's important that you walk in the shoes that you're in and deal with the issues that are present for the skin suit in this physical body at the same time.
Yeah. Another topic we were touching on is the fact that when many people first awaken and they learn what part of the universe they're from, or what their makeup is, or who their star family is, a lot of them will spend a period of a couple of years in that mode of, I don't want to be here. I'm so happy that I found my star family. I want to go back to Arcturus, or I want to go back to Andromeda or Betelgeuse, somewhere else. Have you had any people who come to you that have reached that sort of nexus point of, I don't want to be here anymore, but this isn't helping me. I know who I am, and I've recognized, and Angie's helped me recognize the greater potential of who I am, but I need to shift out of this, I want to go back to my star family. And it's important. It's important to discover who our true selves are. Have you had any of these people?
I have.
Okay.
I've had several clients who have a very hard time being in the human body and in the human world. Really, that comes down to more of energetic kind of pulling together and pulling that in. One of the chakras that I work with that they show me is right at your navel. I call it the soul star chakra. Other people may have another name for that. But it is about opening that up, because that's where you came into this body and you put your soul in there when it was formed. So as that opens up, it's about integrating who you are into this physical body so that you can be comfortable here and get the things done that you came here to learn, to grow, and to explore. Because sometimes we come here for experience. It isn't so much to learn anything.
Right. Just to come to the destination Earth and see this really beautiful planet and this great diversity of people and animals and experiences. And go, I want to come play here.
Right. And then once you've decided that, you forgot what it was like, and you're not always happy with that experience, which is what we're seeing with some people as they come in and have that, I'm going to call it a little bit of a crisis, because they don't really want to stay or want a human or be in that body. So, but yeah, I do work with people who have a hard time with that, and helping to try to integrate it back in and look at maybe some of the things that they can try to build here in this world to make it worth their time, worth their while, and inspire that energy of joy.
Do you ever see any people, they obviously know that they need help, but they come in and they're really angry? And the anger is not from a specific sense of loss, like you lose a husband or a wife or a brother or sister, and of course there's the process of stages of grief and loss, and anger is one of them. But do you have people that have come to you and said, I'm really angry and I don't know what it is? Of course there's a core reason somewhere, but have you had some of those?
Oh yeah, I've had people that struggle with all different kinds of emotions: anger, sorrow, things that are not explained. Typically those come from a past life experience, somewhere where they've gotten, something has been triggered here that wakes that memory up. And it doesn't make sense.
And it wouldn't make sense, because they're kind of scanning their whole life and going, I shouldn't feel this way. And yet I do.
I'll give you an example. I have a younger kid that I work with. I call him younger because he's like 20, but really terrific kid, has been struggling with this feeling of disconnect and being separated and sorrow. And when I looked at it past life wise, he was abandoned in a woods as a child and left to die. And that's what he was continually experiencing all the time. And he had no idea what it was or where it was stuck.
Because the energy of that sorrow from a past life had been stuck in his DNA, which of course is not only literal and physical, it's energetic. So he has this little marker for sorrow. It's stuck in his DNA. And he brought it into this life.
Yep. And some family trauma experiences that he had a couple of years before triggered that memory and brought it to the surface. And as most people know, anything that we're experiencing that we call trauma, tragedy, whatever, it's all an event given to us to help clean something up. So it always comes in as some kind of value to help you take the next step forward. If we, look at any novel or anything else, it's kind of a, common theme with us as humans. As you build character, you go through all of these trials and tribulations, and it helps take you to the next step. But all of the triggers are nothing more than valuable experiences to take you to the next plane.
Right. Should people decide they want to act.
Right. Sometimes spirit doesn't give you a choice.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, people get,
The ones the most resistant will not get a choice. At some point, they're going to have to face that. Or they just keep making the same circular mistakes all the time and not really growing and stepping up to the next spot.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially if somebody in their life looks at the broad expanse of their life and says, I don't have any reference point for why I keep doing this, whatever this is.
Right.
And so you'll get people that come to you with sort of this blank look in their face and go,
right.
I want to resolve this.
Right.
Don't know how, don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, and I've told a lot of people, I know this is not going to make an ounce of sense, but this is what I'm getting with it. And that's what we work with. And we typically work with the experience. When I pull that kind of energy back in, it's about pulling it back into the wholeness. I look at them as fractures. All of these little, how they're shown to me, little parts of us that are not whole or feel fulfilled are kind of fractured off of the main energy body. So a lot of times when it's past life, I'll have their guides come in and talk to that part of them about why they experienced it, what they needed to learn from that, and asking for that part of them to accept it and step back into the full energy body where they can be brought back in and healed and whole.
Wow. And the times that you've done this kind of consulting, I would imagine you're getting clients that will call you back or email and go, thank you so much. Where there's either an immediate impact or there's a series of experiences that shows them, I feel different. I'm experiencing life different. I'm seeing life different because of these adjustments. Is that's happening?
Oh yeah. I get positive feedback, and we keep working until we get you at least where you feel like you're confident and comfortable you can take the next step.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a lot of positive feedback and a lot of returning clients, which to me is positive feedback.
Yeah, that's great.
Because if you're getting something from it, then we'll continue to work together.
Yeah, I want to go back to this human reference.
Sure.
I anticipate that what she was saying was that you speak or you articulate the concepts that you're trying to teach the people in a pretty understandable fashion. That you're using typical Earth human speak and not a lot of higher spiritual concepts, because some of the spiritual teachers I've met around here can be pretty heady.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, as you work with different client base, or when I do publicly speak, so when I go out and about, I kind of tailor what I'm saying to the audience that I'm working with.
Yeah.
So, I have some friends that I can use those really high level, and clients also, but use those high level spiritual terms, and they know what I'm talking about. And I have some mentors that use some of the terms with me where I don't even know what they're talking about. So, so sometimes I do try to make it make sense. One thing I do know about this whole walk is that it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
So I try to bring in the little pieces as much as I can to give encouragement to take them to the next phase. But the entirety of everything that we're working with on the spiritual realm in this experience, we can't see it.
Yeah, there's so much that we learn every single day, and sometimes it's even as simple as we're out, you stop, do some shopping, you run into somebody you hadn't planned on running into, a conversation ensues, and all of a sudden these little I don't know what to call them, but moments of acknowledgement about ideas that you may have not thought about come flashing forward. And that's one of the reasons why I carry a pen. I'll whip out a little piece of paper. That's important. I got to remember this. Yeah, it's important to grasp those little moments of insights and hold on to them.
I use voice notes, although my phone does not like me and always gives me something else. So.
Oh yeah, the transposition from
Yeah.
spoken voice to words, and you
I
go,
have to-
I didn't say
Yeah, I
this.
have to look at it
Yeah.
later and go, what was
What is
that?
that? Right. Says the mind in the bucket. I'm like, that's not what he said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, because I do channel, I get some of my most profound statements in the weirdest places. If I'm very quiet for a minute,
Sure.
I'll get some of the craziest information that comes in. And it's usually just a brief statement that makes me stand there and say, what? I have no idea what that even means. And sometimes they show me and sometimes they don't. So
Yeah.
one of the great quotes that has to do with that they gave me was a star being that came in I think it's been probably 7 years ago at this point. And he said, trying to teach the human mind to understand the entirety and vastness of what's really going on energetically is like trying to cram a watermelon through the eye of a needle. It's not physically possible. So that's always stuck with me to like, I don't need to understand it because I really can't anyway.
Right.
Not to the vastness that it is. So.
Right.
But I get really excited when things make sense and they kind of line up, in a way that logically makes sense in human terms.
Yeah. And when we get a few of these that happen sequentially, it's like, oh, wait, these things are connected. I mean, they may not always be, but to have some of those concepts come in like one after another always helps. Because we can go, oh, okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes they, once you're willing to listen and step out of the way and take on whatever it is that they're showing you, a lot of those things will kind of piggyback on each other. And you can look back later in life and see how all of this stuff has really threaded together to bring you to exactly where you are.
Right.
And it's, that's a pretty fun thing to do. And it's mind blowing at the same time if you can sit and look at all of the little things that still brought you to where you sit now.
I remember a period in my own life, just within the past 2 or 3 years, where I was actually on military trail heading north in Florida. And within the course of about 2 days, I read about 34, 35 references to Lakota, Dakota, Tatanka, Tonka. I mean, and this is in Florida. I'm not out west at this moment. I'm back in Florida. I'm like, okay, I need to be paying attention here. And it actually followed that pretty much soon after, within a couple of months, I had a new set of learning about my own heritage connectedness to the people of Dakota and the people of Lakota and Dakota. But it was like, get ready. There's some stuff coming down the pike. But it was interesting for me because it's not like, that was a very busy time for me. I was spending more time actually taking care of Mom during those moments than living this Tolec life. And to have all of that information come forward, it was like, oh, okay, something's going on, something's going to change. I don't know what, but pay attention. So it was at least it was a heads up for pay attention. And sometimes I think that's enough to have people open up and consider that there's some growth that's needed, some expansion.
Right. Right. Yeah. I had never been to Sedona before this year, so my first trip out was in August. But I can look back over events that happened over a 4-year period that were preparing me for some of the things that have brought me here, and some of the energy that got opened up when I was here on my first trip.
Would have you speak here sometime? That would be good. I would
be honored.
Yes, that would be good. Yeah.
I would be honored. Yeah, it's there's been a lot of and they seem very random, none of these things that make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I grew up in Ohio, lived in Ohio. I've only lived in Florida now for 3 years.
Okay.
Before I moved from there, I decorated my entire patio like the Southwest. Never even been here. And it just kind of started that ball rolling. And for the reason I ended up here is because my spirit team wouldn't be quiet. And they would not stop poking me. Every single thing I picked up, looked at, said either Sedona or Arizona. So I finally said, fine. And I bought a ticket, and here I am.
I went through a very similar experience. I had been traveling throughout all of the U.S. and globally as well. But when I completed a period of time of about 4 years of travel, moved back to my home state in New England, and I bought this condo, and it was actually an end unit right next to a large forested area. So I felt really blessed that I wasn't stuck in the middle somewhere. I was somewhat out in the country. Make a long story short, my friends would come in and they're like, well, how have you done this? Where have you been? I said, well, I've done a lot of traveling. And they said, yeah, but it looks like we're in Santa Fe or Albuquerque or somewhere in Sedona. And my whole place was full of Native American rugs, Native American pottery, sculpture. And that was before I moved out here. And I actually literally took a map of the U.S., having done a lot of travel, and I went the whole country. And I circled Colorado and Arizona. Set up a number of meetings, secured a good job offer in the Tucson area, and then I spent the next 21 plus years. So I actually looked like I was living the Southwest life back in New England before I got here. I remember walking, while I was still living back in New England, I remember walking down San Francisco Street in Flagstaff. And it was one of those, when you get a wash of feeling over you. So I'm walking San Francisco Street. I'm like, I know this street. I know these stores. I know why. And it didn't matter what the name of the store was, but I knew what the doors and the windows looked like and the openings and the shape of the buildings. Like, I've been here before a few times. And that actually, I had a similar experience when I was visiting Sedona in the late 80s and early 90s, just visiting. I was like, I know this place. I feel like I've come home.
Yep. I had one of those experiences when I was here in August.
I
had Kachina Woman Rock.
Okay.
Climbed to the top and had one of those experiences. Like I've been here before. I know this place. So yeah, I definitely had one of those eye-opening moments, and also had I call it a wash, because it's a download that's so big that I have to sit down. I can't see, I can't move. Physical body is not present at that moment. There's just so much energy coming in that I have to check out for a second. So yeah, definitely had one of those experiences when I came.
I find that, and I know I've talked about this before with other people, but the whole process of living this life that we do, which is to a great degree, we're open, we're conscious, we're making conscious choices, that in order to stay balanced, and especially for you as a healer, we got to get out in nature.
Yes.
We have to absorb the quietness and the energy of nature, just to sort of calm all the things going on in our lives.
Yeah, it's for me where I live, when I come here, I go hiking or go out, and sometimes just being in the energy here is enough for me. But when I'm at home, the beach, I go to the beach. There's nothing like the ocean that'll, when you're sitting there, it just takes away everything.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So for you, is it Melbourne?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually do some events there during like full moon and other kind of cosmic events where we have crazy energy shifts, being able to be present. And I do a little bit of channeling, have whoever wants to come in, do a blessing and a cleansing for all the people who are present, and whatever energy wants to come in at that time. And then there's just some quiet time where we move energy and everybody gets to sit in their own space. And, if they're able to just sit and be quiet, that's enough for some. And others, they're able to really tune in and bring in much more expansive energy.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do an event where you are on the East Coast.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
That would be great. The little town that I do physically live in, St. Cloud, is not overly known for being greatly spiritual, but the Orlando area actually is. There is a very large spiritual community there.
Did not know that. Wow.
They're not as like out in the open as where, as we are here in Sedona, where that's kind of the primary culture that you see. There it's a little more hidden, but not really. Once you look into Meetup or some of the other online groups, you can find all kinds of things.
Angie, we were talking earlier about the differentiation between, say, when someone loses someone, or from a broken relationship, and they're feeling pain, they're feeling loss, they're feeling grief, they're of course feeling love because they miss them, Would you please provide some kind of differentiation for us regarding this topic?
Sure. I've had a couple of different experiences with clients and other direct messages with that kind of energy. One of the things that was given, I have a very dear friend who both of her children were lost in a car accident, and the
Wow.
daughter came in during a healing session for her, and the direct comment was, pain is not love, and I'm asking you to release the pain and remember the love so that you can walk through life. And it was a really profound statement that's always stuck with me, to kind of differentiate the difference between the pain that we feel when we're grieving, that separation, and the actual energy of love that we hold for the person.
Right. And the capacity to express and or give what people
Right.
call love.
Right. And being stuck in the trauma and the loss and not living in the love and the connection, because they are different.
Yeah.
The other quote is a direct channeled quote that came in, I don't even know how many years ago at this point, but it's one that's always stuck with me, and it's one that I refer to with clients all the time. And they told me that love is the illusion that we are separated from spirit, that we are somehow energetically not in alignment with universal love, energy, and bliss. So when you look at it from the experience of trauma and grief and loss, it's that feeling that we are separated from that bliss and that we are no longer a part of it. So on an energetic side, as we're stepping out of it, it's an illusion that we create for ourselves, that we're not part of it. Because really love is just that inspiration and that feeling. And the reason that we're all addicted to it is because that's how we know that we feel when we're not in a body.
Okay. And that if you will, the feeling of pain.
Yes.
If I understand you correctly, the feeling of pain is actually the energy of not being connected.
Yes. So it's that illusion that we have, that we are no longer in contact with the energy of love at all.
That's very profound. Do you have a lot of people that are coming to you feeling that way?
I think we all feel that way, intermittent throughout our experience as humans, depending on our walk, what we've done, the traumas, how we were brought up, how we've been taught to view love, because everybody has a different idea of what that is on a human level.
Good point.
So I think that we all experience that. It can be the loss of a pet. It can be the loss of a partner. It can be just that feeling that you're self-punishing too, and not allowing yourself to have those experiences of being connected with love and joy and happiness.
Do you see a high incidence of people, or any what percentage of people maybe that are coming in that are just acting that way? They're self-punishing quite often.
Probably the bigger part of my clientele are separating themselves from positive experiences by self-punishment. One of the more recent concepts that have come in for me energetically is the chemistry of behavior and the energy of behavior. And we're all sort of addicted to this negativity and this ability to push out the things that are the most meaningful and lack. One of the biggest things when I work with Akashic records is the rewriting of it, is the finalizing of contracts, where we'll write down our name and put it in there. It's a big visual that they take everybody through, that you put your name at the bottom of this contract and you write it on this big piece of papyrus paper that's really ancient writing.
Okay.
It's something that we've done in another time and space, that we're still carrying the energy of punishment forward. The karma's been finished.
Right.
And we're still carrying it forward because we still feel as a being that we need to give some kind of punishment back, or we're still not good enough, or we're still not allowing ourselves to walk through that. Sure. So the bigger part of the energy of pain and self-punishment, where I see that come in, is through those experiences.
And if I hear you correctly, that you're getting a high percentage of people that are coming in that don't realize it's okay to give this up. They don't have to keep sort of
right.
giving themselves up, giving themselves over, not fulfilling their own cause or their own mission in life.
Right.
That they're sort of like self-beating themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the time when it's when we're working with the energy and manifesting or trying to move to the next stage in life, or why they keep repeating cycles,
Okay.
it comes down to pretty high levels of self-punishment. Most of the time I have seen that the karma's already been paid, and it's just the being itself or the soul that's repeating this cycle.
Okay.
Because they still in some way have remorse for whatever that was and can't seem to let it go.
Does that, when you're doing that work with someone, is that show itself up pretty clearly? Like as you're trying to discern what's going on? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a pretty standard visual that they usually take people through, and it sometimes I've seen them physically drag the person up the stairs because they won't go up to sign it because they're so against letting that go to move to the next step.
That's funny.
Other people have sprinted to the top because they know that it's time.
I got to get rid of this. It doesn't help me anymore. Yeah.
Right.
So when you say that, you're talking about the guides that you're working with at that moment with that client.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Wherever, sometimes they're guides that I work with, and other times they're just theirs. I don't always see who they are.
Okay.
A lot of the time, unless it's something that I need to be made aware of, I see them as pillars of light. They don't always show me who they are.
So that discussion about the various guides that show you and show the client what's next for them or what they've got to do in terms of signing off on a contract that they signed a long time ago, brings to mind a topic we were talking about earlier, which is, please tell everybody about the kind of guides that you access or that have shown themselves to you as helpers and assistants for these people that are looking for the next stage of their own growth.
Okay. I work with a variety of different beings.
Okay.
They're all of light. I will not work with anything that's negative. I do ask a lot of questions of new guides when they come in, so making sure that I'm only working with positive forms.
Okay.
But my main guides that I work with, where I started, the first being that I channeled was, I call him Yeshua ben Joseph, who we know as Jesus. Other people call him Sananda, and there's other names out there.
Right, of course.
I was raised in a pretty Christian environment, although we weren't avid churchgoers or anything like that. It was still part of the family belief system. So in order to kind of gain access to me, that was the first being that stepped forward.
Sure.
I appreciate his help very much. He's, to me, nothing like anybody else describes. He's very loving, very nurturing, does a lot of inner child work, especially with holding people together, because I do work with a lot of trauma and PTSD and other things that come in. He typically, when he steps forward for me, feels like a warm blanket that's wrapped around my shoulders, and that's how I know that it's him. He is one that will introduce new guides to me because I trust him.
Right.
One of the other main guides that I work with probably 90% of the time is Archangel Michael, and I channel him so often sometimes I don't know that I'm doing it.
Oh, sure.
I have friends who know me really well, and they'll ask me, who are you channeling? Because your eyes just shifted. I say hi to Michael, because I don't even always know that it's him, because I work with him so much.
Right, got it.
If he does announce himself to me somehow, he fluffs the wings behind, so I know that it's him. He's always a sense of assurance and positive energy, and he does really fun things. You know, there was I was driving to Ohio last spring, and the roads were kind of icy, and I kind of zoned out for a moment, and the wheel turned.
Oops.
And I went, oh my gosh, thank you, Michael. And his comment back was, you're welcome. I like driving cars. Usually Jesus gets to do it. And I could not stop laughing.
That's great.
So my guides are very funny with me because I do communicate in humor, and I usually tend to pick that path because it's more comfortable. I work with Anubis when I do exorcism work or attachment work. He comes in and moves things out to what I call rehab or purgatory, because there's never a place where you can't find some kind of redemption. It just might take a while.
Yeah.
So purgatory is a place where you can put those beings that are not here to do anything positive, so they can't have influence in this particular dimension anymore.
Right. So it's, so that we're clear, it's sort of it's nomenclature. It's a name for an energetic.
Got it.
Right. I figured as much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I call it rehab just because I think it's fun.
Yeah, that works.
Because that's where they can go to choose to do something better, and that's always my hope when they get sent off, is that they decide to do something better with their existence. I've worked with a great number of deities. I have specific people that Buddha will come in and talk to, and that's part of their energy system, not so much mine. I've worked with like Athena and Aphrodite. I've worked with a lot of different angels that have stepped in to talk to people. Worked with some ancestral guides that have come forward, higher self. Sometimes they come in as just a collective because they don't really need to announce an individual name. Sometimes that's more specific to the person. If they need some kind of assurance and need to know who it is, they'll come in and explain who they are and what they're doing. And other times they just come in and say, we do this and yada yada, and they don't really elaborate too much.
Would that typically be a group that's come in, let's say, I'll create a client, Jennifer.
Okay.
And that the soul group that comes in, that Jennifer would be part of that soul group originally?
Yes.
So they know her really well, that kind of situation?
Yeah, her specific brand of experiences, if she's familiar with Buddha or someone who is like a grandmother or an ancestor or whoever that blend is for them. It's that part of Universal Collective that comes in as a group to talk to her specifically.
Okay.
And the messages are directed to them. Those are some of the guides that, I personally work with, but I also work with Bridget a lot. I've had different Hindu deities come through. I've had voodoo guides come in. They do a lot of work. Especially in the area that I'm in. They're a fairly prevalent group.
Yeah.
And they do some really profound and awesome work with really harsh energies.
Okay. Yeah, you gave them a specific name. They're called Orishas?
Orishas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Depending on the group that you're talking about, that theology works a lot with saints and the dead and also with the Orishas. I work with the Orishas and occasionally I pull in saints, but they're not one that I go for a lot. Because I do a lot of exorcism work and a lot of work in magic and alchemy, they come in a lot to work with other beings of light who are being, I'm going to call it infiltrated for lack of better word, with negativity that's coming from another source. Just because they don't have an attachment or an attachment can't get to them doesn't mean that it can't come in from another source.
Okay.
Where I've had a couple of healer lightworker people that have come and the Orishas have broken stalkers and attachments and other outlying energies that are driving these other humans to these behaviors.
To significantly abnormal behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
To basically deter the person from walking toward their purpose.
Got it.
So they do a lot of pretty high level, really amazing light work also.
And I take it they take on the heavier loads, the really the heavier stuff, so to speak.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was pretty resistant to bringing them in.
Yeah, I can understand.
In the beginning of it, they've come to be a very valuable resource. Being a person who works in energy and being around others, not all light worker people are light worker people. Some are still not quite clear on their path and not working in higher realms of light.
Okay.
And some have tried but have been deterred by other beings that have come in under false pretenses and kind of taken them another direction. So depending on where we are in our path, magically, energetically, some of us haven't gotten very far. So those guides will come in and kind of warn me that kind of energy is around or bring in different levels of protection. I don't work in spells and magic and incantations as much as some people do. I tend to work with it more in light form.
The energy of it.
Yeah, okay. I have them show me that way instead of working through traditional forms. I ask them to show me in planes of light so that I can accomplish the same goal.
Okay. And would it be something where you are requesting them to make an energy shift?
Yes.
From somebody that's been maneuvered off their path?
Right.
Yeah.
I usually have to have that person's consent, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but
yeah.
typically this comes in for the most part when it is somebody who's under direct attack and they need that kind of energy removed. And it's an interesting visual that they give me. It looks like an octopus leg, and there's like thousands of little suction cups around the outside. That kind of energy and magic is meant to break people down. So you have to pull off the pieces.
Yeah, because that many suction cups means that they're drawing a lot of energy off that individual.
Right.
Yeah.
So you pull them off, and I wrap them up in a nice bow. And anytime you're working in that kind of world, if you put back any ounce of negativity, you're reciprocating the cycle. So you have to send it back with lots of love and encouragement to do something else with that, and let karma and that kind of retribution take place on its own.
Do you give it to Source?
Yeah.
Let Source handle it?
Yep.
Yeah.
They take care of it, and you close it with a pink veil of light. That's the visual that I use.
That's good.
Curtains down. We love you. Goodbye.
Right. Yeah. Right. Y'all got another job somewhere else.
Go do that. You figure that out, and I'll just go my way. Love you. Bye.
Right. And we're going to let this person evolve.
Yes.
Back onto his or her own more natural path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people have really evolved, and those are the ones that typically have the karma that they're still carrying around. And I know that was my own hang up with not wanting to work in the world of magic, is because of something that I still don't know what it is, and I don't want to know.
Right.
That I did and had to pay retribution for.
Okay.
But I have come to know that negative magic, curses, all of those things cannot work on you if you don't allow it. So there's some part of you that feels like you deserve it for it to take effect.
So these are the people that come to you and say, this is what's going on in my life, and I know that this is happening. Can you please help me? Got it.
And sometimes they're not aware, and I'll ask, do you have any run-ins with, this kind of stuff? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is what's happening, and this is what we need to move.
Right. And you would be prompted to ask this kind of question because you can sense a particular energy field about this person.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I do, like I said, I do work in the evolution end, and I also work in the cleanup end of things too, with negative energy and magic and alchemy and attachments and cleansing spaces and people that.
How about people that have a sense that if they're going to make progress in their lives, that they would need to tap into the Akashic records to see what's next for them? Is that something that you'll do for them as well?
Sometimes.
Some form? Okay.
Yeah. Well, anytime you do a psychic reading, you're looking at Akashic records. So in one way, shape, or another, you're still drawing the information from that source. At least that's my understanding of it. So yeah, you can tap in, and I can tap in and look and see where you are, what's coming up, where you're headed into at the moment. But I also know from what I do, you can change anything. So we can change our records. We can go in and rewrite things like the old things, the old patterns of behavior. We can change it and add new things in to bring in more positive experiences. So not even Akashic records are always something you have to go through. If you haven't done the karma, yes, you have to go through. But if it's finished, you can rewrite and change cycles.
Right. And based on what we were talking about earlier, if somebody has that sense that they need to clear something in order to move forward, and if it's in fact Akashic record related, you can bring them to a place, or at least have their guides, if you will, take them by the hand and say, you've paid your dues here. It's okay, and here's what we're going to do.
Right.
And so how does that happen?
This is through guided meditation and energy work, a typical session that I will work through. And sometimes I see this coming, and sometimes I don't. And when the visual starts, I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing today. So it starts with a nice walk where you kind of meet your guides along the path, and then they take you it's a big white marble temple, and you go up in, and there's a lot of stairs. So you head up to the top of the stairs, and you see the records there in front of you, and they kind of just encourage you to finalize it and sign it. And you don't really need to know what it is, because a lot of times we'll relock self-punishing if we know what we did.
Know. Yeah,
so often it's best to not know, but that's how that visual usually works for the person. I can usually sense the hesitance, and the verbiage will change. Like sometimes they'll get more encouraging to get them up the stairs, and other times we could charge right in and go right for
They're
it.
like, I'm ready. Yeah.
And then they take you out, and when you walk back out of the temple, it's almost like you get to recreate. And after you sign the contract, they usually take you back to the podium where you finished it, and you get to write down what you want to create in your life in its place. They work with me in great levels of balance. So when you take something, you put something back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's always, as something leaves, you're always receiving. So that creates more of a balanced idea of energy movement, because if you take too much and there's nothing put in its place, people have a very negative reaction to that.
Yeah. How about using this last topic as an example? You take someone through this process. Tell me about some of the feedback that you've had from any number of your clients after going through done clear the karma, have rewritten my Akashic record contract. This is what's going on in my life. I mean, there must be some really good stories.
Had a lot of feedback with, job promotion. The biggest one really is just more self-confidence and being able to step into it, which is one of the biggest catalysts in being able to step into anything you're wanting to create. Is to be able to stand in your power and walk to the next step. That's probably the biggest thing that I've had come back. New relationships, job movement, things that they had been trying to create in their life and couldn't.
Right, because they're in a literal karmatic cycle.
Right, so you break the cycle and you can step to the next stage.
All really good things for anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So of the different topics we've been addressing, I know one of them is magic, which we recently spoke about, and the fact that it essentially is energy, and it's another way to use energy. Can you tell me what's been going on in your own life recently in terms of magic, your trip to Serpent Mound, what came up for you and what you learned out of it?
Okay. Yeah, magic is energy. Energy is magic. It's all the same thing. And when you're moving something energetically, it's alchemy, it's changing, it's elemental. And there's all of those elements that combine together to shift and move things. It's been coming on little bits at a time for probably since March. I was the first download in the first part of it. I do work out of Ohio. I'm originally from there, so I go up and do some of the bigger trade expos and things that are there, and still work with my clientele base that's located there.
Sure.
I've kind of made it here recently a little bit of a practice to stop at the Serpent Mound and clean myself up on my way home, so that I leave behind and kind of leave my blessing for the earth also, because gratitude is a big deal when you're working with energy and intention and all of those things. Gratitude and gratitude, love, joy, all of those are the most expansive energies to bring anything into your life that you want to work with. So when I stopped this last time, and it's become interesting to me that now both times I've stopped and went in to do my work, that every other car that was there leaves and I end up there by myself. The first time I was there was a lot of really profound cleanup work when it comes to bad choices in magic and things that I had done in other realms and in other times, and things that I needed to work through to no longer be susceptible to things that people may throw my direction.
Okay.
The second time that I went, which was just actually about 2 or 3 weeks ago, what came in was I brought in a very large download from the grandmothers, and I'll be very honest about my own experiences. Sometimes these are a little harder to bring in than others. And this one has been profoundly challenging for me to bring it into my own energy system. I've had to reach out to 2 of my mentors personally to unlock the doors to bring it in.
And it's we all need help.
Yeah,
all of us.
It can be traumatic and pull you down, and as long as you can keep your sensibilities about you, you won't completely fall apart. But
and sense of humor.
Right. Sense of humor is my lifeline.
Hard.
Right.
It's hard to laugh at ourselves sometimes because we do this work, we take it so seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big believer in spiritual snarkiness, just because it keeps me sane, and sarcasm is one of my primary languages anyway.
Okay.
But this particular download was from the grandmothers, and it was very elemental. Also involved a lot of what I was seeing as stardust raining in on the entire place. What this was and what they were talking to me about was the energy of magic and energy movement, and that it's been for many centuries now, because of the separation of the divine feminine from the masculine in our world.
Okay.
They're working with it now on no longer seeing magic as like a Harry Potter wand where you point something at it and demand it to change energetically, or throw the right elements at it and it is that complete alchemy where it just shifts, where it's like a chemical response more so than something that grows or blooms. So what they were showing me is it's kind of a white vortex of energy that looks very similar to our DNA strands. And
Wow.
when it comes in, it's bright white, and it comes from the earth and it comes up through. And the way that they are asking me at this point to move energy through the body is more of bringing it in from the bottom, supporting and nurturing the parts that are not able to move forward at that point so that they can. And it's more of a supportive way of moving energy instead of the alchemy of just bang, that's different and now you feel better, because people don't always feel better when you move energy drastically.
True.
So this is about changing the way that it flows and allowing it to bloom more than explode, is the way I'm going to put it.
Okay.
So being able to move this kind of energy in, I have to hold a different level of love energy than I've previously brought into my physical body. And it's been a challenge to open the cell structure to that and to let go of some of the experiences that I've had throughout my own personal journey through time and space to step into that.
So this one's here for you as well as helping the other people that you're encountering.
Yes, I was told once by another reader that I was a cosmic experiment, which made me laugh. And I said, my first response was, well, did I fail? Because it feels like it.
Oh boy, yeah.
But
we're all hard on ourselves. We're the most hard on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
And what did they say?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. Well, it feels like it. But. No.
And there you go. We are the most hard on ourselves.
Right.
I know.
Right. So, moving this kind of stuff through, it's been a little bit more of a challenge than I anticipated, but the peaceful part is here. The way that it typically works for me is I am always the guinea pig, because I need to know how that energy moves, how the responses are, so that I kind of know the safety mechanisms to not blow the circuitry on the people that I work on.
Okay.
That's been the traditional movement of how things work for me. Some of the earlier modalities that I got into and kind of grew my knowledge base from didn't have, the safety catch in it to be able to know when that's enough.
Yeah.
So I went down the tubes first to figure out that's not how you go about it.
Okay.
Because when a little bit's great, more's got to be better, right?
Not necessarily. Yeah, because sometimes people get they become oversensitive.
Right.
To too much clearing.
Right.
And they oversensitive is the best way I can.
Right. And it'll bring out parts of you that you're not always proud of. One of my default emotions is anger. And I will become the most vicious-tongued person on the planet when I'm feeling that level of vulnerability. So, so I admit to my shortcomings.
Yeah, okay.
But, as you go through this kind of stuff, you learn to control it, and you know that what you're experiencing is part of that process, so that you don't always respond in a way you wouldn't be proud of. But that's been my course of action throughout my entire growth, is that I experience it first, and then that way I know how to bring it in for others, and that way I can feel the hesitation that they have, or this is enough for them right now, and we can stay within the place that's not going to cause a healing crisis or a spiritual crisis, because I really try at all costs to not ever send people there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There are so many energy work modalities that involve either bringing in channeled energy from source, and or, with Reiki, there are specific attunements and certain codes and other things. With this, it sounds like it is a completely different methodology where you're actually to celebrate, Sophia or Gaia or the sacred feminine. You're actually bringing her energy up from the planet into someone. Am I saying that right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Are you noticing a different kind of response in people to that kind of
faster growth?
Faster. Okay.
Yes, faster growth, because you're not now working through all of those pieces, and it's actually supporting the energy. It keeps going longer than my standard sessions before, where you would walk through, and you'd have some continual shifting, but these what they've been giving me are that we will continue to work with you for the next 30 to 60 days. So these people are still evolving over time, and it continues to work a lot longer than the way that I was doing things before.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks for the clarification. So as this energy is coming up from the earth, and it is, if you will, capturing the essence of whether we call it Sophia or Gaia or the sacred feminine, there are some pretty powerful aspects of this energy that, if you talk to any of the women that are healers in this greater Sedona area, this is a very powerful time for the rise of the sacred feminine that's been suppressed for years. So can we talk about that some more?
Well, the way that they were discerning the difference between male and female energy movement, and the way that we've utilized it is, the male is very powerful. It's very demanding. It's kind of very forceful, and the female is the softer, nurturing.
More subtle.
When you combine the two, it becomes both. And it does both at the same time. So it's moving quickly and much more powerful, but it's also supporting and nurturing and holding all of those pieces together as it travels.
Would that also sort of manifest itself in a way where women are acting, if you will, acting more strongly, speaking out more forcefully these days, with a greater sense of strength and purpose than they had in the past?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
It's lending to opening that voice, knowing who they are, because a lot of women, part of this other factor that comes in with this, and when it's working with women specifically, is we do have different parts of our feminine divine aspect, and a lot of women are very fractured apart. We have our wisdom keeper, our knowledge, our strength, that core part of us that sometimes most women are afraid of that, and they don't always know how to bring it forward. Part of this energy is putting that in the center, so that becomes the central part of where you're finding your responses, where you're finding your voice, and where you're standing in your power. The supporting part of it comes in when you're bringing in what I see as the child, and the child usually sits on the left for whatever reason. I think it's just because left and brings energy into the body. That's my theory on it. Haven't been working with it any longer than just about a month or two, so I haven't quite gotten it all.
Sure. Yeah. Still dialing it in.
Still trying to figure out what means what to me. But I usually see it on the left, and that part of you will bring the child onto her lap and nurture and support all of those pieces that feel broken and separated and harmed, to help heal it and bring it back into that central version of knowing who you are. That allows us to use those traumas, use those abilities to have a voice, instead of not having one, or to shy away from experiences. It's using that to empower us. The other part of this is the mother who sits on the right, and the mother is the part of every woman that will give to her absolute demise and destruction.
Yeah, the easy part is nurturing.
Right. So, but giving it all away to everybody else, so there's no sense of balance, and that doesn't work either. Because sometimes all you're doing is enabling a behavior that they need to work their way through. So it's the knowledge, trusting your knowledge to know when you should give and when you should just hold back and watch them and be there to be the support at the bottom if that's what they need.
Right. So you're much more of a, instead of giving, you're supporting, you're listening, being the quiet or silent partner.
Right.
And speaking up only when necessary. Is that?
Sometimes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Having a voice is great, but sometimes if it's not going to be heard, we should look at it doing it in another way,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. At least that's my version. Um, I've always looked at the way that we interact with each other on a human level is there's a fine line between the town crier and the village idiot. So, knowing when it's going to be heard and knowing when it's just going to be something that
We might get, as a metaphor, lost in the wind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about knowing the difference and knowing when to pick your battles, pretty
Sure.
much.
Yeah, which means, as we've all talked about many times, being present, staying in the moment,
Right.
paying attention, and I guess being very appropriate and wise with our choices.
It's been wise with our words because,
Yes.
you can say the same thing in 5 different ways, but they're not going to be heard in the same way. So you have to kind of tailor your responses to your audience.
Yeah.
And say it in a way that it will be received as you intend. You're not always responsible for how it's received.
Right.
But putting it in a way that is the easiest for that person to hear what your meaning is
the right words, the right inflection, the right energy, all
Right.
of those. Yeah.
Right. So that way your response is clear.
Yeah. Wow, this has been amazing. So, Angie Clark, your website is?
It's angieclarkhealer.com.
Okay.
There's a contact form in there. You're also welcome to email, which is essentialelementswellness@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Like I said, I have clients all over the place. I can do this via distance or in person if you happen to be in the Florida area, or you can catch me at some of the events when I'm traveling. Those are usually listed on my website, so you can keep tabs if that's something that you wanted to do in person. If not, I do Skype, Zoom, phone sessions, Facebook Messenger with people all over the world. So,
for those people who might be interested in meeting you, I'm sure that you've got some upcoming events where you're going to be speaking as well as providing some sessions or mini sessions for people.
Yes, I have a few events here that I'm working on attending. The Mind, Body, Spirit Expo in Tampa, that's January 26th through the 27th. The Mind, Body, Spirit Expo, it's the Celebration Expo in Denver, which is March 15th through the 17th. And the Victory of Light, which is April 6th through the 7th. These are tentative dates. You're welcome to check my website. It'll be under angieclarkhealer.com in the events section. So updates will always be there. So you can always check that to see where I will be in case things get added or changed. Or you can follow me on Facebook. My page is Angie Clark, Psychic, Intuitive, and Healer.
Alrighty. And the Victory of Light event.
Yes.
That one's in...
It's in Sharonville, which is close to Cincinnati, Ohio.
So your home state of origin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I take it you'll be visiting with family while there, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, Angie, thank you very much. It was been a pleasure and very enlightening. I've learned I've learned a lot today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And like I said, I just appreciate the experience.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you'll be hearing from a lot of people that are listening because you bring together and integrate and make available so many different modalities of healing that you're a good source to come to because you can say, hey, listen, I have this platter, a variety of means to help you. And so we'll see what you need.
Yeah, it was, I describe it the same way it was described to me by my guides. I kind of look at this huge tree of knowledge and I pick the apples that work for me at that time. And there's a basket there. So you kind of gather your own information and how it makes sense to you so that you can utilize that and share it with other people.
Yeah. And help them heal and grow in the process. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you.